House of Cards is brought to you by Drizzly, your online liquor store. Available in over 95 cities across North America, Drizzly offers a huge selection and competitive pricing with a side of personalized content. Now there's no need to leave the house. Get alcohol delivered in less than an hour by Drizzly. Head on over to drizzly.com and order today. And now get $5 off your first order of $20 or more when using promo code DRINK19 at checkout. Shop beer, wine, and liquor with drizzly.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls,
You're listening to House of Cards.
Today, the game is different.
I want to gamble. Gambling is a very serious business. Is that clear?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to House of Cards. I'm Ashley Adams, your host. We have a returning guest, one of my favorite people in the writing world. His name is Jim Swain. He's written Another Winner, a great book set in Las Vegas. It's called SuperCon. I'm also going to be talking with Steve Selbrede. He is a multi-book author, written 5 books on poker, and I think you'll enjoy listening to him. Stay tuned.
House of Cards is brought to you by Drizzly, your online liquor store. Available in over 95 cities across North America, Drizzly offers a huge selection and competitive pricing with a side of personalized content. Now there's no need to leave the house. Get alcohol delivered in less than an hour by Drizzly. Head on over to drizzly.com and order today. And now get $5 off your first order of $20 or more when using promo code DRINK19 at checkout. Shop beer, wine, and liquor with drizzly.com.
Yeah, you, come here. Haven't you heard? We don't need to hide anymore. Now, we can shop privately for adult products at adamandeve.com. They've got massage oils, lingerie, and lots more we can't mention here. Use offer code SPICE404. They'll give you 50% off almost any one item, 3 free DVDs, free mystery gift, and free shipping. That's 50% off, free shipping, and more. Private shopping starts at adamandeve.com.
When it comes to online sports betting, PlaySugarHouse.com offers players one of the best experiences in the state of New Jersey. They offer live in-game betting on sporting events worldwide, moneyline bets, point spreads, prop bets, play-by-play bets, and many more. All at PlaySugarHouse.com, your new home for sports betting in New Jersey. Take advantage of one of their 12 easy deposit methods to get in on all the action. And now when you sign up at PlaySugarHouse.com using our promo code HOUSE, they'll match your first deposit up to $250. Must be 21 years or older and in New Jersey to place a bet. Terms and conditions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
You're listening to the House of Cards with Ashley Adams.
A poker face carved in marble.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to House of Cards. I'm Ashley Adams, your host. And as promised, we are joined by the fantastic, wonderful, terrific author who has written another terrific book. His name is Jim Swain, James Swain, The new one is called SuperCon, and just like all the other great ones that I've read that I love to read, this one is set in the middle of the gambling world, the gambling epicenter of the world, Las Vegas. Jim is with us now. Jim, are you there?
I'm here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, wonderful. I stayed up till 3 a.m. to read your book in one take. It was just terrifically suspenseful, and I enjoyed it immensely, especially the setting. Why don't you just tell our listeners, if you would, a little bit about the book and why they might be interested in reading it?
This is the third book. First of all, I'm glad you stayed up till 3 a.m. That's music to my ears. This is the third book in I Write Crime Books in the Billy Cunningham series. Billy is a hustler in Las Vegas, a scammer, and based upon someone I met a number of years ago when I was in Vegas doing an article on poker cheating for Men's Health magazine, and he works with a crew. And there are dice crews, and there are who's cheated dice. There are crews that cheat rigged slot machines. There are crews that cheat at blackjack. And Billy's crew does a variety of different things. And this book was kind of dear to my heart because I've always been interested in fixing sports, how that actually works. And in SuperCon, Billy is approached by another hustler, a Chinese gangster who wants to fix the Super Bowl. And Billy's against it because he feels it's very, very risky. And the Chinese gambler doesn't take no for an answer, and he blackmails Billy into doing this. And so Billy is forced to come up with a way to fix the Super Bowl. And I spent a great deal of time researching this. As probably some of your listeners know, fixing sporting events is not uncommon in Asia. It goes on with soccer. It goes on with horse racing. It goes on in a variety of things. But it is uncommon here in the United States.
Well, so we think.
We did have cheating scandals in the 50s, primarily with basketball and, of course, with boxing. But, I think we do a better job of trying to clean it up and trying to keep the games as clean as we can. Yeah, there are things that happen, but there is, trust me, I did a lot of research on the NFL and how they police themselves. I think one of the other things that made me want to write this book was several years ago, there was a scandal with the NBA,
right?
With a referee,
I remember that,
who was fixing games, even playoff games, and 60 Minutes did an expose on it, and he wrote a book about it, which I read, and it fascinated me because I felt basketball, especially televised, when it's televised, it's like they're in a fishbowl. How could a ref be fixing games? And as it turned out, that when they reviewed his record, I believe he had fixed, I think the number was 80 or 85 games.
Yeah.
He was fouling out the higher scoring players on a particular team. And of course, that would cripple their chances of, and very often I believe he was, the game, sometimes the team wouldn't lose, but it would be for the point spread. So a particular team wouldn't make the point spread or would make the point spread. But anyway, he did it for years. And when the FBI caught wind of it, and they went to the NBA and said, you have a problem. This is going on. The commissioner at the time, I believe it was David Stern, who has impeccable credentials. He said, "That's ridiculous. It can't be happening. We watch the players. We watch everything." Well, it turned out he was wrong. It was going on, and the referee went to prison. And that just kind of opened my eyes that these things can happen.
Right.
And wouldn't it be fun for the gist of a novel to have a Super Bowl fixed, and how it goes about it. And then, of course, we get into the inner machinations of the NFL. I will tell you that when I wrote the book, which was over a year ago, I had no idea what the problems the NFL was going to be having this year, which has already come up with a few. The book is out, and I've had any number of readers contact me and say, do you have a crystal ball? Because I say some things about, as you know from reading the book, about the owner's influence on these games.
Listeners, we're going to cut away. We'll be back after a quick break.
New Jersey's sports betting market has exploded, and there's so many places to bet it can make your head spin. But PointsBet.com is the one online sportsbook you can't afford to ignore. PointsBet.com has everything a person would want in a sportsbook. Spread betting, moneyline betting, prop bets, you name it, you'll find it at PointsBet. Daily promos that can't be beat, odds boosters you won't find anywhere else, early payout promos, it's all at PointsBet.com. You can bet from anywhere in New Jersey using your mobile device. And now there's even a better reason to sign up with PointsBet.com. Go to PointsBet.com and sign up using our promo code HOUSE, that's HOUSE, and you'll get 2 risk-free bets up to $1,000. PointsBet is the preferred sportsbook of superstars Allen Iverson and Darrelle Revis. They even have the Revis Betting Academy hosted by Darrelle Revis himself. So sign up today at PointsBet.com using our promo code HOUSE and start having some real fun. That's promo code HOUSE, HOUSE. PointsBet. Stay sharp. Must be 21 years or older and in New Jersey to place a bet. Terms and conditions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
This is House of Cards Radio with Ashley Adams.
You are more in need of a night in Atlantic City than any man I've ever met. I'd say sit down at a table, go for dinner, see a show, take a walk on the boardwalk and smell the salt air. But if you're anything like me, nothing after sit down at a table is going to happen.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Ashley Adams. You're listening to House of Cards. We're talking to the great author, Jim Swain, who's written a new book, Super Con. A couple of questions that I have, and I want to make sure we cover them. First of all, I wonder in general, I'm going to get into some specifics later, but in general, you write a book that really undermines the image of the NFL as a pristine, gambling-free place. And I'm wondering if the NFL has in any way given you any blowback saying, this is unfair or this is untrue or we know it's a novel, but it missed. Have you gotten any blowback from the NFL?
No, I've not. And, we went out of our way to the teams that are in the book are fictitious. Okay.
Yes.
And as you know, the teams are fictitious and the players are fictitious. So none of them. I'm not pointing the finger at any particular team. And in fact, in doing my research, I haven't seen anything that says any NFL players or teams have done anything nefarious in decades. There have been allegations of some players and teams doing some things in the 60s and 70s, but I couldn't find anything that was recent. But the issue that I raise, and it's just one of sports in general, but it's particularly true with this game, is the owners of the teams all have revenue sharing from television. It behooves them to have playoff games and big games where you have marquee teams from big markets playing each other because they sell more advertising.
Sure.
And the revenue share, which I was able to find out through something that was written about the Green Bay Packers because they released what they made. because they're publicly owned, the only team that I believe that is. It was extraordinary. It was like $250 million a year just from their TV contracts. That's a lot of money.
It sure is.
And so, the idea here is that, hey, if I'm the owner of a small market team, do I want my team, is it more financially beneficial to me to have a big market team playing in the playoffs, and a big market team, and I mean a big market from LA or New York or New England or Chicago, as opposed to a small market team, say from where I live, Tampa or Jacksonville, playing? Draws less eyeballs.
Right.
This is just reality.
That's right.
And would owners, or would the league fictitiously, this is the premise, possibly put some influence on outcomes? And that's the premise. And I'm not saying it's happened, but I'm saying I feel that when you have that kind of financial makeup of your league, that could cause a problem down the road.
I agree completely, and I think it's naive to think that it couldn't happen. Whether it's happened or not, who knows? But you push it a little bit further than that. If I recall correctly, sleep deprivation notwithstanding, one of your key football player characters, I think he's called Night Train. What a great name, by the way. Night Train, I think, is kind of revealing to your hero, Billy Cunningham, all that Billy doesn't know, that the NFL is scripted like professional wrestling. And he's schooling Billy on the fact that this has gone on for a long time for the reasons you just mentioned, the revenue sharing, the piece of the pie that the teams get from the television contract, and that lots of the outcomes and the whole way that the game develops and injuries and all that stuff is scripted. That blew my mind. That my goodness, is that possible? Could we all be being set up with the different storylines that we think are just the natural product of athletes engaging in true competition, when perhaps there are writers who have decided on the outcome well in advance and how we're going to get there, and making it as suspenseful and TV-worthy as possible? That's something that really, I got to tell you, Jim, blew my mind. Call me naive, but I never thought that such a thing could even be conceived for the NFL or NBA or Major League Baseball or college football. But you bring it out as a real possibility. That's a little bit earth-shattering, I think, because I have not read anything else about that. So anyway,
actually, it's where I did my research on this. There is a marvelous writer named, I believe, is David Pruhy, Prouhy, who, when I was doing the research of the book, read his books, Larceny Games, I believe another is The Fix Is In, which discuss this at length. My book is fiction. Pruhy's books are nonfiction. And I would, I'll just say that after I did my research on this book, and looked at not just the NFL, but all the different professional sports leagues, which are making the majority of their money from revenue share TV advertising and cable deals. I look at the sports now, and I look at the outcomes differently.
Yeah. So will I.
And I'm okay, because money does affect it. It does. It just simply does. And one of the things Pruhy says, hopefully I'm pronouncing his name correctly, says in his books, is that it doesn't. If it doesn't make a difference to the owners or the players, the outcome, the financial outcome doesn't make a difference, because we're all sharing the same pool of money, then why not do these things? Why not have fairy tale endings?
That's right.
Why not have storybook matchups? It's what draws viewers.
That's right.
And I hate to say it, but the public has always been gullible, most of them, to these type of matchups. Even they just are. People like it. And as a friend of mine who in Hollywood who does reality television said, all reality television is scripted.
Right.
It's all scripted.
Right.
Okay?
I believe that.
And it made me wonder sometimes with some of the things that I had seen with, because I played a little football growing up, and it was just a down and dirty game. And, I just watch the sports now, and I look at some of these outcomes, and I just shake my head. And I think the money does have an influence on things. And I think the bigger it gets, and until we can change it, I think that when I particularly like sports like golf, where, hey, if you don't make the cut, you're out. All right? What a great concept.
Well, again, Jim, thanks for joining us. We look forward to having you again to talk about your next book, your movie, whatever it is. We'd love having you on.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Ashley.
All right. Listeners, that's Jim Swain, author of SuperCon, which is a super book. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Dave Weishuttle from House of Cards with your House of Cards gaming report for the week of July 8th, 2019. A poker pro is claiming he was robbed at gunpoint outside the Rio during the World Series of Poker. Joe Salvaggi claimed that at 5:10 in the morning, a man jumped out of a car, pointed a gun at him, stole his car keys and his backpack, which had thousands of dollars in it. Salvaggi tweeted that the police said he was targeted since video shows that the suspect followed him to the parking lot. New Jersey's Division of Gaming Enforcement warned Vegas Insider that its promotion of offshore sports books is a violation of state and federal law. In a letter, the DGE warned that the link advertising betonline.ag that appeared on the Vegas Insider website was not a licensed sports book in the United States. This move by the DGE was its latest in trying to dissuade media companies from doing business with unlicensed and offshore sports books. And finally, a Madison, Mississippi man is being held in custody after an incident at the Ameristar Casino. Video surveillance shows that a little after 2 a.m., Edwin Adams jumped the counter of a cage at the casino and began throwing things. Adams didn't take any money, and the reason why he jumped over the counter is still unknown. Nothing good ever happens after 2 a.m. Have any news or tips regarding casinos, gaming, or legislation? Send us an email at newsroom@houseofcardsradio.com and follow us on Twitter at HOC Radio.
You're listening to the House of Cards.
Whoa! I think we got a show.
Oh, yeah, we got a show.
We definitely got a show.
Oh, yeah, there's a show. Hey, it's all about ratings, baby, and we got them.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Ashley Adams, host of House of Cards. I'm here with a great poker writer, and I got to be honest with you all, I don't know how to pronounce his last name because I've read it, but I've never said it. His name is Steve. Steve, are you there?
I am here.
Tell me how to pronounce your last name.
Selbrede.
Selbrede. I would not have guessed that. Steve Selbrede, spelled S-E-L-B-R-E-D-E, right?
That's right.
So Steve Selbrede, who is the author of 5 books and also writes for PokerNews.com, where I write, and I was just flipping through the site, egotistically looking at my articles. I decided, hey, every once in a while, why don't I read somebody else? And I read Steve's article, and I was so impressed that I contacted him about coming on the show. So, Steve, you're on. Give our listeners a little bit of background about you so that they know something about how you came to write about poker.
Well, my career was in Silicon Valley as a technology developer for many years, and while I was working there, I started playing online poker, and I became interested in it sort of like an engineer would be. Very technical, data-driven type of analysis. When I moved to Las Vegas and played a lot of small stakes live games, I became sort of more interested in that. That's what most of my books are about.
Small stakes.
I'm a technical guy.
Now, did you move to Las Vegas because you wanted to become a full-time poker player writer, or did you happen to move there just coincidentally?
No, I wrote the first book, which is about online poker, when I was living in San Jose area. I moved here basically semi-retire, and once I was here, I found that my online skills didn't do as well on the low-stakes cash games as I thought they should, so I began to study the low-stakes cash games and try to understand how to crush those games. So I was here kind of to retire, and of course I like poker, so I play poker too.
I see. So it was a place to semi-retire. And have you remained semi-retired, or do you have a full-time gig that you couldn't help but pick up once you got there?
Well, I taught at UNLV for about 6 years. I just finished my last semester, and now I'm retired from that too.
What's your regular room?
So I couldn't, and I do some consulting engineering now and then too. So, retirement is kind of a relative thing.
Yes. So, do you have a regular room that you play your cash games in, or do you have a few, or do you just go all over the place?
I mostly play at Red Rock because it's a very, very nice card room with very pleasant personnel there, and it's only a mile from my house. But I also go to the Strip and a few other places, especially when I want to play a little higher. 2-5, I'm more likely to go to the Strip to play 2-5. 1-2, I'll play close to home. It's kind of a relaxing thing.
Okay. Could you give our listeners who probably have not read your work, can you give them 2 or 3 concepts that you think are particularly useful to the low-stakes, no-limit player?
The first concept, I suppose, is to not listen to the experts, including me, if it doesn't make sense. The real problem is that the low-stakes cash games in Las Vegas and probably the rest of the country, I would guess, don't really play very much like, let's say, solid online or higher-level live games, because the small stakes live players are kind of impatient, so they don't want to fold. They're very loose. I mean, I took a lot of statistics on the live games, and I found that the Vegas 1-2 players and 2-5 players are twice as loose, or not twice, about 70% looser than the average online player, and substantially more passive. So if you want to crush the low stakes cash games, live cash games, then you need to adapt to that reality. You can't just raise every time, because they won't fold. And so if you're raising with marginal hands, you won't be as profitable as you might be. So I started thinking about how should I adapt to that major difference in the type of players we see here.
Have you written books about that particular type of player, or are your books pretty much geared to the tighter online player?
No, well, the first book I wrote, which is called The Statistics of Poker, is geared to online players, but the last 4 books are all aimed at low stakes cash games players, live cash game players.
Well, give our listeners the titles so that they have them.
The first one was called Beat the Donks, which is kind of just a general way that the low stakes players, how they make their mistakes and what you can do to exploit those mistakes. So, for example, they're way too loose, they're too passive. They call too many pre-flop raises, and there's a lot of other things in that book. And what should your best counter be to that to increase your profit against those types of players? And there's also sections on the typical tells you see in these live games. Some of them are really bad. So it's as long as you're paying attention, you're going to see all sorts of ways to exploit them. And even in the 2-5, in the 1-2 and the 2-5, you'll see the same thing. Only maybe in the 2-5, there's a little bit more higher population of a little bit more aggressive player, and maybe they're not as many really bad players, but there's the same basic player. It's just the mix is a little different. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so I just think that, for example, if some of the best books that I've read, like Harrington's books, for example, I think are really written from the perspective of a high-level pro in playing in relatively higher-level games like 10-20 and 25-50, which is what these pros play.
Right.
And even if they play the small stakes games once in a while, I don't think they really, let's say, aim their books at those types of players.
A couple of questions about that. First of all, you mentioned that there were some obvious tells. What are a couple of the more obvious tells that you've noticed among the relatively low-quality players you play against in Las Vegas?
Well, one of them is what I call the preloading tell, where somebody to your left it's already prepared to fold their hand before action gets to them. So most low stakes players look at their hands or look at their cards before action gets to them, and if they're not interested in it, they may hold their cards in a certain way. They might even hold them out, a few inches above the felt, waiting to fold them. And if you're in the cutoff, for example, and the button is clearly going to fold, then you effectively can play the button twice. And this happens. I would say 25% of the players have some kind of preloading tell. Some of it's sometimes a little more subtle than what I just described. But if you pay attention, you can to the player to your left and maybe to the second to the left, you can essentially have position more often than you would normally expect it.
That's
and
very
position
good.
is so important.
Yes, that's very true.
That's why this tell is so important, because it improves your position effectively.
Give us one more.
Well, it was interesting that there was one ex-World Series of Poker bracelet winner who plays at Red Rock, who has a tell where on the flop he would do something. He would essentially look disinterested whenever the flop didn't hit his hand. So you could essentially... it's basically what I would call an interest tell or a disinterest tell. When they're not interested in, they've missed the flop. He would always fold if he checked, and then I would bet after him if he had that tell. And so the real question is, the real key thing is to pay attention, which 1-2 players and 2-5 players don't do a very good job of.
Right. I think.
In other words, they're usually looking at the board rather than at other players. But if you're looking at the other player, another player, especially that guy was a good player, they can provide a tell like that, which can almost be foolproof. Right. Because I could tell when he was going to fold to a bet after him, after he checked.
I think those tells are right on the money for the games I play in, and I wonder. I had a couple of questions about that. Do you play online at all now? I know that in Nevada you can. Do you?
Well, yeah, you can in Nevada. First of all, WSOP has an online poker site here you can play.
No, I know you can. Do you play? Do you play?
I do not play very much anymore. Once Black Friday showed up, and I lost a fair amount of my online bankroll when that happened. I only play occasionally. There are some other I don't know if you call them pirate sites that you can play cash to. That technically, I don't know if it's legal or not, but they accept your money. But I don't want to put very much money on those sites because, you could lose it at any time.
I see.
So I don't want to play it. So there's no point in having thousands of dollars on on a non-sanctioned site from Nevada when they could go belly up any time. And the WSOP site doesn't have really much action. There's usually only a few tables.
I see.
And unless you multi-table, you really can't do much.
I see. So you mentioned the WSOP. The WSOP is in the final phases. Did you participate at all, and do you have any thoughts about what happened this year?
I played in the Colossus. What was that, like 3 weeks ago or something, 4 weeks ago, something like that?
Yep.
I don't play much tournament poker, so once a year I usually play something like the Colossus or the senior event or something like that. But I don't have any success.
But you played in the Colossus. That was, what did they have, like 10,000 people in that event?
I think they had something like 18,000 entries. Some of them were re-entries, though. So I don't know how many individuals they had. I mean, independent people they had, but probably in that range. But something like 18,000 entries, which is just slightly lower than last year's. I played last year as well.
Did you play in the seniors this year?
Not this year. I have in the past. Actually, maybe next year I'll play in the super seniors. I'm getting old enough for that.
Are you really? Are you 65, Steve?
Yeah.
Wow. That's.
I'm an old guy.
You sound much younger than that, and you write much younger than that. And we're going to take a break now. We'll be back after a few seconds timeout.
House of Cards is brought to you by Drizzly, your online liquor store. Available in over 95 cities across North America, Drizzly offers a huge selection and competitive pricing with a side of personalized content. Now there's no need to leave the house. Get alcohol delivered in less than an hour by Drizzly. Head on over to drizzly.com and order today. And now get $5 off your first order of $20 or more when using promo code DRINK19 at checkout. Shop beer, wine, and liquor with drizzly.com.
Yeah, you, come here. Haven't you heard? We don't need to hide anymore. Now, we can shop privately for adult products at adamandeve.com. They've got massage oils, lingerie, and lots more we can't mention here. Use offer code SPICE404. They'll give you 50% off almost any one item, 3 free DVDs, free mystery gift, and free shipping. That's 50% off, free shipping, and more. Private shopping starts at adamandeve.com.
You're listening to the House of Cards with Ashley Adams.
A poker face carved in marble.
Hi, listeners. This is Ashley Adams. You're listening to House of Cards. Welcome back. Listeners, if you just tuned in, we're talking to Steve Subbrady about poker, about his book Beat the Donks, and how the Las Vegas game is quite different from the online game. You know, most older guys like us stay away from No Limit. There's still a lot of them are caught in the time warp of Limit Hold'em. And I am curious, you're 65, what books made an impact on you? You mentioned Harrington, mainly for explaining how that doesn't pertain to the typical game. Were any other books useful for you?
Well, I think that Harrington is still an excellent book for anybody who wants to play. Well, for example, Harrington's tournament books are extremely good, but as well as his cash games, because he teaches you a lot of the basics, along with some pretty clear, well-written examples. Then, of course, you've got some of the old Skalansky books like Theory of Poker, and some of what Miller has written, Ed Miller.
Yes.
I've probably read 100 poker books, because when I write my books, I do research. So my books are very technical, so I can't really just write them from the top of my head. So they're researched. Especially my last three, which is the Donkey Poker books.
I always call that plagiarism, but that's another story.
Well, I try not to do that. In fact, I think my books are somewhat against the grain in many ways. For example, in the Donkey Poker Volume 1, it's about pre-flop play, and I make a mathematical argument why you should be able to, why limping is just fine in many specific circumstances, whereas conventional wisdom is that you should always raise if you're going to play a pot. And in fact, this is pretty close to true online. But in the live low-stakes games, limping is I think the most profitable play in many cases, and whereas raising against, say, if raising under the gun, let's say I'm under the gun with pocket twos, online I might raise or fold there, but I wouldn't limp. But in a 1-2 game where the aggression is very low and the chances of being raised is low, then limping from under the gun with pocket twos makes some sense because you have sufficient implied odds to do that. Plus, the live game pots, the pot size of the live games are much higher on average than they are online in terms of big blinds. So the reward is higher when your limp succeeds and you flop a set, for example.
Yeah, I agree. I also think, though, Steve, I think that limping with pocket deuces in early position is pretty standard these days, that so many people are into set mining that
in live that's true.
Yeah.
Yes, but the conventional wisdom is pretty much against that grain. Although you find some experts say that it's okay sometimes, but raise it if you play it is a pretty conventional attitude. But there are a lot of attitudes like that I try to show aren't always true. And I use a lot of statistics and math, both from the online stats as well as stats I took from live games to try to show why certain things are better to do in a live game, even though they're not necessarily the recommended thing to do in an online game.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. We have about 30 seconds or so left. Why don't you tell our listeners how they can get a hold of your books and how they can read your current articles?
Well, you can go to Amazon to find all of my books, so they're available there. And I guess pokernews.com, and I guess if you search for my name, you'll find my articles. I write one every 2 or 3 weeks. Steve
Selbrede, Selbrede, poker writer, engineer, bon vivant, interesting guy. I'm sorry I didn't get out to Las Vegas this year. I wanted to hook up with you, but my flight was at the last minute. I found out I wasn't booked. That's a story for another day. I would enjoy meeting up with you, and the next time I'm in Las Vegas, I'll give you a call.
Oh, I would appreciate that.
Thanks for coming on, Steve. I've appreciated having you as a guest.
You're welcome.
All right. That'll do it, listeners. We're going to end the show, but come back next week. And until then, good luck and good day.
Slow